Hey, it's Steph, and today I want to talk about how to set SMART goals for happiness. Now, in previous videos, I've talked about the 8 pillars of wellness, and I definitely recommend setting some balanced goals in those different pillars. But the key ones for happiness that we should focus on today are definitely going to be mindset. We're going to talk about some health-specific goals. We're going to talk about social, experiential, as well as spirit and soul. So let's dig right in. I'm going to give you some examples of SMART goals in these different categories, how we can set them, and which ones I actually recommend and have personally used to become more happy in my own life. The number one SMART goal that I recommend to become more happy is to start positive journaling. This would be a mindset goal. And the reason for this is because positive journaling is scientifically proven to rewire your brain to start looking at all of your experiences from a more positive lens. It has to do with the myelin sheaths in our brain. The more we think a thought in a certain way, the easier it is for our brain to make that connection, and the more quickly we start seeing things from that perspective. An example of how we can make that a SMART goal would be to positive journal 300 times throughout the year. And the reason why I like to do annual goals is because I like to think of how many times I want to accomplish it that year, but then leave a little bit of space for myself to fail. Take a week or a few days off and then come back to it. You can also break these annual goals down into weeks and months. It's a SMART goal because it's very specific, it's very measurable, it's time sensitive, it's definitely attainable and realistic. The next SMART goal that I would recommend for happiness is going to be in the health realm. And that is because some somatic practices, which means connecting with your body, are really important for mental health. So I would recommend setting a goal around moving your body. That could be walking X amount of minutes in a year, or kilometers in a year, or times a week. It could be doing a yoga practice or a weight training practice. Personally, I have set a SMART goal to do 50 yoga classes this year because I know that yoga really helps me connect my body and mind. And then I think of the reason why I want to do it, which is for mental health and happiness. And that's another important piece, is like thinking of what the reason is and connecting that together. If the reason is something that makes you feel good, then that's going to bring you better results. Another SMART goal for happiness that you could set would be an experiential goal. Experiential goals are pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone to try new things. And this is actually something that psychologists recommend to some patients with depression. It's an activation behavior to get outside of your comfort zone and switch up your mental patterns. So some examples of SMART goals we could set around this might be to try new restaurants, maybe 12 new restaurants in a year. Maybe it's travel to a certain amount of different countries in a year. Or maybe it's a few set specific experiences that you've never had the time to try before, or maybe you feel a little bit nervous about trying. Getting outside of your comfort zone and then proving to yourself that you can is so enlivening, and I definitely recommend it for happiness. Another goal that is a SMART goal that I recommend for happiness is going to be a spirit or soul goal. This is the type of goal where you're helping yourself feel a sense of fulfillment beyond yourself, beyond because you have to. So some examples might be to dive into a creative project and allow yourself to get lost in that state of flow for a certain amount of time. So maybe it is write 5 different poems throughout the year. Or it could be volunteering or giving back to others. A sense of giving is definitely a way to get outside of yourself and those mental patterns that might be making you feel less happy. Maybe it's volunteer 5 times throughout the year. Another type of goal that is really helpful in increasing your happiness that you can make a SMART goal would be a habitual style goal. Habitual style goals are tricky at first because you have to force yourself to get into a new habit. But scientific studies have shown that although it can be very difficult to break into a new habit at first, once your brain and body become used to this new habit, it's actually more difficult to get out of it. Think of any bad habit that you've gotten into. It's the same thing. So some habits that you could do to increase your happiness would be, one that I did that really increased my happiness is before I start the workday, I get outside for a half-hour walk every morning. And it makes makes the biggest difference ever for my workday and my mental health. There's studies around having the sunlight hit you at certain times to be able to have a better circadian rhythm. It impacts your sleep, it impacts your quality of sleep, and it also impacts your vitamin D, all that good stuff. Nature is healing. So a smart goal around that you could set might be, I want to get outside for a walk before work 50 times this year. Although there's only so many opportunities to do a before work walk, so that one is a little bit challenging. I do like to set goals where you can save yourself and make up for it. You do have a few days where you're able to sleep in because you're gonna need to sometimes. But just remember, as you're setting these habitual goals, although it's hard at first, you are gonna get to a place where it's easy, and just think of that place, push yourself to get to that place. And then once you get to that place, you're gonna feel amazing. Another goal that you could set for happiness would be under the social realm. We are social creatures. And although sometimes you might not feel like going out and socializing, or you might feel lonely, pushing yourself a little bit can be important to get those endorphins and dopamine naturally from connecting with people. Connecting with people is very important as humans. And it doesn't have to be deep connections. Actually, there have been studies that have shown that having a balanced number of different types of connections throughout the day is one of the most fulfilling ways that you can connect with people, which is so interesting. This means that going to a yoga class and saying hi to your classmates, or going to a coffee shop and knowing the name of the person who's serving you your latte could be just as beneficial as having a deep, long conversation with a friend that you've had for many years. So with that in mind, if you're feeling lonely, or you're feeling like you want some form of deeper connection with those around you, why not set a smart goal like, I want to find out the name of 3 people at the coffee shop that I frequent this year. I want to say hello to someone in class maybe like 10 times. It's really important to set those set numbers, not just say hello to more people or say hello to any people. Get more specific and then test out how these things make you feel. But I guarantee that pushing yourself to connect with others, although it can be uncomfortable at first, is definitely going to be worth it in the long run. And then finally, and one of the most important types of goals, I would say are, of course, we're going back to health related goals, but there's a couple of things I haven't mentioned. A few other ideas for happiness to set goals would be goals around nutrition, not for losing weight, but for better balancing of hormonal health and gut health. They say that your gut is your second brain, and having unbalanced hormones can impact your mood and your happiness. It can also even trigger things like depression or PMDD. So looking into what foods you're eating, if you're noticing that your diet could be better, I definitely recommend trying out different things that might work for you. Maybe it's cutting down sugar. I personally found that really worked for me. A smart goal that you could do around that could be, I want to do 60 days this month or this year where I don't have any processed sugars at all throughout the day. And finally, talking about mindfulness goals, again, a meditation practice is one of the main goals that set me free from being unhappy and increased my happiness. And that was setting a set number of mindful minutes every year to accomplish. I do another video on different types of meditations you can do, but I hope that that was helpful for now, and I hope that you gathered some ideas for goals that you could set to increase your happiness. I would love to know what goals you are setting to increase happiness below. And if you'd like to learn how to set more goals, I'm leaving a link to the framework on how to set goals to cover all the different pillars of wellness. If you want more resources, check out triple G tribe.com. Bye for now.